A slamming door woke Tara Pakanich out of a deep sleep in the early hours of February 23, 2022. The sound was unusual enough that she got up to inspect her home. Tara knew that her adult son, Shad Thyrion, and his girlfriend, Taylor Schabusiness, had been holed up in the basement for the past 2 days. While she hadn't laid eyes on them in more than 24 hours, she had heard them cavorting and carrying on down there. But now it was forebodingly silent, and someone had left the porch light on. How annoying. She navigated the darkened house to her son's basement bedroom. No one was there, but something incongruous caught her eye. A bucket with a towel draped over it. Curious, Tara pulled back the towel and looked straight into her son's lifeless eyes. But there was more than just her son's head in that ghastly 5-gallon bucket of horror. This is Schabusiness before pleasure.
So mom, dad, Kevin, Carrie, Brendan.
I can't believe that you murdered him.
It would have been one of the last weekends.
Shad Thyrion, 24, lived a quiet life working for his father's family business while he stayed in his mother's basement. He had been dating an old high school friend on and off for some time, a 25-year-old woman named Taylor Schabusiness. She was married, but that didn't really matter to either one of them. Taylor lived in her own apartment with a roommate not far from Tara Pakanich's house. On February 21, 2022, she picked Shad up from his mother's house at around 9 p.m. to party with her and her roomie at their apartment. They smoked some pot, then some meth for good measure, and after the roommate left, the two had a nightcap of injected trazodone, an antidepressant often used for its sedating properties. Somehow, Schabusiness was able to drive her van back to Shad's basement dwelling later that night, and the two crashed there. According to Taylor, during her police interview, she and Shad were indulging in some BDSM sex on February 22, 2022. They used silver choker chains that Thyrion had purchased for the two of them. It was going swimmingly as Taylor dominated Shad during the drug-soaked sex games, but Schabusiness wanted to spice up the roleplay a little more this time. What would be more arousing than choking your lover with a chain? For Taylor, allegedly, it was choking him to death. Too bad for her, it was a trick she could only perform once. Schabusiness wasn't done after Thyrion's heart stopped, however. She stayed several hours with her boyfriend's body in Pakanich's basement. He was still warm, and so was she. But the drugs and necrophiliac urges seemed to wear off at the same time, and now she had a body to dispose of. Good thing she was a long-time #1 fan of Jeffrey Dahmer, because the late serial killer had been an ace at dismembering his dead lovers. She set about her grotesque work using whatever items she could find in that basement. One item was a bucket. Taylor was responsible for the slamming door that woke Tara out of REM sleep that morning. She had loaded Shad's body parts into her van using various boxes and containers from the Pakanich basement, but by her own account, she became lazy and sloppy as her drug cocktail wore off. She left the most important container behind in the basement, that godforsaken bucket with all her favorite pieces of Shad. The 911 call from Tara Pakanich must have been shocking, but police didn't have to spend much time finding the murderer. Taylor found them. The police were outside her apartment searching her van when she stumbled upon the officers. If her blood-stained clothing at the time of her arrest wasn't incriminating enough, the human legs found in a crock pot box in her van was a clincher. Schabusiness reportedly told the police everything during her interrogation, even admitting that seeing Shad choking and fighting for his life had been the ultimate turn-on. This particular tidbit was what got her the additional third-degree sexual assault charge. Taylor didn't spill the beans to ease her conscience, however. She had a plan. Time to roll out the insanity defense. Perhaps history would have been different if Taylor took her blood-covered Schabusiness to Walmart instead. According to one young shopper, nobody would have looked twice.
We were walking and we didn't want to look suspicious. We were already covered with blood, which looked suspicious, so we didn't run.
So at Walmart, you filled up your water bottles and washed off the blood?
We considered the fact that we might be questioned why we were covered with blood, but then we decided it's Walmart. So
that's normal.
Huh? There are pictures of people that are pretty much naked at Walmart. So nobody looks twice.
You can find out how that little girl and her friend came to be covered in crimson on our main channel, Absolutely Criminal. The two-part episode blurs the line between fiction and reality, back when such a dividing line existed, anyway. If you're enjoying the show, please help us grow by hitting thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for more twisted tidbits. Now let's get back to the Schabusiness at hand. On May 19th, Taylor told Brown County Judge Thomas Walsh that she considered herself incompetent to stand trial at her competency hearing.
I just need to simply ask you at this time whether you are asserting that you are competent to proceed or not competent to proceed.
Competent.
I'm sorry? Incompetent? Okay. Okay.
While we are inclined to agree, actual experts had been hired to examine Schabusiness as she waited in jail for her competency hearing. During the 4-hour court session, 2 board-certified forensic psychiatrists outlined their findings from their interviews with the defendant. The state's forensic psychiatrist Deborah Collins had spent about 75 minutes with Schabusiness on April 4th. Dr. Collins revealed that the defendant's medical history included diagnosis of bipolar disorder, ADD, ADHD, and PTSD. Her substance abuse history included meth, cocaine, Xanax, acid, and alcohol. Dr. Collins concluded that Schabusiness was not suffering from psychosis and understood the court proceedings as well as the possible penalties if she is convicted. In other words, Schabusiness was competent to stand trial. On April 22nd, Dr. Tracy Lucetta, the expert for the defense, had conducted a 2-hour interview with Schabusiness. Contrary to the state's expert, Lucetta revealed that the defendant had thought she could receive the death penalty if convicted, not an option in Wisconsin. This expert also noted that the defendant had made delusional statements during the interview and often needed to be redirected to the questions. The defense attorney for Schabusiness argued that the defendant had not received mental health treatment during the weeks separating the 2 evaluations, but Judge Walsh didn't buy that, noting that these were findings of 2 different psychiatrists, and he deemed the defendant competent to stand trial. Later, in Taylor's June 2nd preliminary hearing, probable cause was found to proceed with the felony case against Taylor Schabusiness. Her arraignment hearing took place on July 5, 2022, in which she pled not guilty to the charges. Her court date for trial is set for October 19, 2022, and she is held on a $2 million cash bond. Well, we can't wait for October now, can we? Stay tuned to Absolutely Criminal for updates and dozens of full-length episodes. If you like shorter stories, subscribe to AC Tidbits for a quick criminal fix. Until next time.